I sort of flew in and started like, okay, I'll be presenting. I'm here as part of my job, but I didn't know, Dylan, that this was like more about like side projects. I would have like drawer full of side projects. So like, please, I can come back anytime with like more fun stuff. Hi, I'm Mariko. You can find me on these platforms in these faces. I am from the browser that makes dinosaur run when offline. I'm a dev out there. And so it has never been a better time to be a web developer, that I think. So many things are landing on the platform, and problems we had to work around for so many years are now easier to solve. I mean, look at these features. These are all landed in web platform in past 2 years. And when I say landed, it just doesn't mean that it was implemented in one browser. I mean, it's landed in all browsers. So here's some quick question to start an interactive session. Is CSS subgrid safe to use in projects today? What do you think? Yes? No? Yes? No. Well, if you paid attention to my list, you know that the CSS subgrid is supported by all browsers. So maybe, depending on your user base, you're safe to use subgrid. But this is the things that we go through as a web developer, right? In our day-to-day, we often encounter the question about browser support and which feature is like usable. And today, I want to spend a little bit of time on this topic and introduce you to the project that might help when you have those questions. So let's start from the beginning, right? You're a web developer, wants to use certain features or API, and you ask yourself, can I use XYZ? And then what do you do in these situations? I don't know. I go to caniuse.com or I look up MDN and see the compat table. And I don't know. I don't have a set rule, but I just go to those websites, see greens and aligned up, and then say like, it feels like it's safe to use. And we call those interoperable, right? Features are available on major browser engines, and you sort of feel that it's safe to use. But interoperability does not happen by magic. There's a lot to do, a lot to be done for the feature to be interoperable, meaning supported by all browsers. Like if you think about web project, you are, even like multinational, like open source project, you are contributing to one code base. And once things gets implemented, that's done, it's ready. But the web platform doesn't quite work that way. Because for web features, there are 3 different browser engines and 4 different major product, the browser. On top of that, it's all running on different devices and different form factors. So you can see how it quickly gets complicated, and every browser vendor has their own motivations for implementing a feature, or in some cases, preventing some features from progressing. So it's a lot of political back and forth about what the web platform should have. And so you can see it quickly gets complex of a feature in web platform needs to get implemented in multiple layers. And once everything comes together, then we have that green all lined up as a interoperable. Good news is that we've had a real drive to get things implemented in cross browsers over the past few years with the project called IntoOp. Do you know about IntoOp project? People, some of you. So this project brings representatives from main browsers together. So not just browsers, there's also implementers like Igalia who showed up in the project. They decide on the set list of features that they're gonna work on this year. And then they work on it to make that list complete for the year. And it has been going on since each year since the 2022. So if you go to their project website, which is hosted on the platform test dashboard, you can see the scoring. So this, I took the screenshot yesterday. This is the result of IntoOp 2024, but they are in the midst of discussing the list for 2025. So soon this counter gets to 0, and then all of those 4 browser vendors gonna work hard on making this number close to 100 as possible. The announcement should be coming soon. So into a project, remember the list of the features that got available last past 2 years? Like if I select some features, these ones on orange were the one that got accelerated by into a project. So how is anybody supposed to keep up with all of these updates? And how do you know when a feature is interoperable? And on how quickly can we start use them once they hit interoperability? You know, the question we all have. And as a web developer, we all feel this confusion, right? Like you have to go around, check different sources, and you have to make sense yourself and then for your user and decide on your own. And this is like time consuming and also error prone. With a lot of features in web platform, especially in CSS, we get partial implementations. So for example, in the case of gap property, for a while, it worked in a grid layout. So you have a grid, then you can use a gap property, but not in Flexbox. And, you know, if you learn grid and then like, you know, oh, there's a gap, then you might, you know, assume that like, oh, gap property is supported in CSS, I'll use it elsewhere too. And then you might get bug on your up and say, why is it not working? Gap is supported, but then, oh, it doesn't work on one thing, but it works on the other thing. And it's just, you know, sort of like, you know, trip. And that's really annoying. In fact, we run developer research on our team, and 25% of respondents on a survey answered that they seem that staying up to date on web features to be challenging. So we also have a fast and different release cycles for browsers. So Chrome, Edge, Firefox ships more or less monthly, and Safari less frequently, and also you don't exactly know when the new versions are coming out. And these releases also comes with meaningless numbers, like Chrome 50. Can you tell me what exciting feature landed in Chrome 50? This is 2016. It's Push API. This was the time that the Chrome landed Push API. So how about Safari 16? What was monumental in this release? It's also Push API. It's the time that finally Push API became interoperable. This was 2023. So it's 6 years in between. And if you had an idea to use Push API or deals with application that needs this feature, 6 years is a lot of time to be occupying your brain space, right? So with rapid feature development and varying browser versions and release cycles, it's hard to point a version for the web to use. And like, let's use this point in web, and that's where we support. In the past, we kind of had a version number as an industry, but that was the IE era. So we used to say, make it work in Internet Explorer, and we were essentially using that as a support version number for the web, right? Everybody was like setting a one target feature set on the set date to be supported. So, the idea was nice. I don't want to go back to IE supporting era. So our question was that can we make things that we could use like a version number for the web and make this figuring out, can I use or can I not use support structure to be easier mentally? So over the past 3 years, we've been trying to come up with a way to help with this, which led us to the project we announced over a year ago called Baseline. It's a way to version the web features. So let me explain. Okay, so what is Baseline? Baseline gives you clear information about which web platform features work across our core browser set today. So core browser sets are for major browsers, both desktop and mobile. So when you're reading an article and say XYZ is baseline, you're using library and then say we implemented this new thing, oh, by the way, this is baseline. You can confidently think or trust the level of browser compatibility, because by saying it is baseline, it means it is supported by all 4 major browsers, both mobile and desktop. So you might have seen the logo show up on things like MDN. Have you seen these like green or blue widget in the MDN or Can I Use recently? Some of you? Yeah. So there's a different levels of baseline. So let me take a moment to explain. So baseline newly available, represented in blue check mark with partial line, is a point of interoperability. So a feature becomes newly available status the day the last browser of the core browser set supports that feature in their stable version. But that means, it may not work on older devices or browsers, or depending on the users, you might not use newly available status yet. But, if a feature is something like a progressive enhancement item, then you can go ahead and use it. For example, JavaScript set method is a baseline 2024 newly available. By the way, we also label features by years. So when something says baseline 24, that means this feature became baseline newly available in 2024, sort of like a version number idea. So the JavaScript set has been in JavaScript specs since GS6, but in 24, it got a major upgrade and got a more mathematical methods added to it. So easy as, creating a set. But say I have a set for pizza and pizza ingredient and pizza topping and a set for pasta ingredients. I can now do things like pizza union pasta, then it returns a new set. So sort of mathematical operation on the data. There's something like a subset of. So if I have a tomato sauce set and a pasta set, if I ask mathematical function, is tomato sauce its subset of pasta, then it returns true. So there's a whole bunch of, not just two, but a whole bunch of mathematical method that is really handy if you're dealing with data sets. Another one from CSS is text wrap balance, which became also baseline 2024. This is a small feature, but such a nice progressive enhancement. And small, I mean, it's just adding a one line text wrap balance. So in print design on the, so basically left side for you, in print design, there's a convention that if the last line is too short, then you line break earlier to balance the typography, like this right-hand side. This was, somebody's reading it, yay, yes. So this is surprisingly cumbersome to do on the web, but now you can just add one line of that text wrap balance, and then it will be done for you on the rendering side. This is a good progressive enhancement because your users who have older versions of browsers or older devices just get the experience they have been getting, which is less optimal design-wise. But then the user who already have a new version or new devices gets a better design representation of your website. So this is very good. So another baseline is called widely available, represented in green check mark and solid line. This is a more conservative version. So a feature becomes baseline widely available after 30 months has passed since it became the blue check mark, the newly available. So it's been interoperable for 2.5 years. You probably have a bunch of blog posts from somebody. There's a good documentation. People have battle tested this feature. If you're more conservative about like choosing which feature to use, if you're going after baseline widely available, generally feels like it'll be a good one to choose. And there's another one called limited availability, but that just means it's not baseline yet and it's represented in the class. Not available, it's only available in one or more browsers. So let me explain how visualize this. So a feature is spec'd and some first browser implements it, yay, it is now a limited support, right? But when a feature is interoperable, it gets changed to the blue checkmark status, newly available. And once 30 months has passed being in a blue checkmark, then it graduates to a green checkmark, widely available. And from now on, it is part of baseline widely available. So now you know that when you see a MDN and see the check marks with information like this, you know exactly what this means. By the way, I started talking about here's a baseline thing, and in November, a lot of conferences, people are like, oh yeah, I've seen those check marks. I've had no idea what that means. So now you understand. So you get the idea about blue check mark and green check mark, but which one should you use for your project? So I've been sort of saying it. If you limited, like if you can control the users, I talked to an enterprise developer who I used to work with, and I was like, do you think these are important or useful? And then he was like, yeah, I mean, in theory, but like I can control my users. I can tell exactly which browser to use to my users. So like, as a work, I don't really need it, right? So like, lucky you if you're in that situation. Do whatever you need to do. And newly available, you know, as I mentioned, if your users are like tends to update the browser frequently or like more of the cutting edge, or if a feature is a progressive enhancement, then you can use the newly available. And rightly, generally safe to use for all sites. So that's the sort of mental division of 3 versions of baseline. This, I said that I'm from Chrome. You might think like, oh, this is a Chrome thing. No, the definition of baseline is owned by a W3C community group called the Web Developer Experience Community Group. Anybody can join if you want to, but the browser vendors and others in community like Igalia and other companies are represented in this group. This group got together, confirmed on the definition, owns the logo, and started working on engineering project. This group have a dashboard like this to see which feature is a baseline or not. But then, hold on a minute, I explained that there's a definition and logo, but like, making, you know, dashboard like this, how does that happen? Because, you know, figuring out which feature is what is still this state, right? By setting a definition, it doesn't automatically solve this problem. Well, definition didn't solve this problem, but engineering project this community group is doing is solving the problem, which is a web features. So you can go to a web features repo to see what's going on. But it's basically a data set that contains each web features and information about the feature, whether it's like baseline or not, kind of a thing. So it's a YAML file. I don't know if you have opinion, but it is a YAML file that has, so on this case, it is a anchor tag. So let's say a feature is one feature, right? Anchor tag is a one feature. It has a description, and then it has all of the compact features key, what we call, which I will get into, for the anchor tag. So like the HTML element itself, the host name attribute, href attributes, all of that is listed in one YAML file as a one feature. So where does this compact feature list come from? Well, it comes from another project called Browser Compact Data, or BCD. This is another data set maintained by a MDN. So if you're interested in what's going on in browser world and want to know the most granular up-to-date information, keeping eye on the pull request for the BCD is where to go. So there is a script that runs on every beta version of the browser to see, it's called Browser Collector, BCD Collector, and then they sort of see the change list to determine what's the new items that got added to the thing, and then it creates a pull request. And there's also manual pull request submitted as well. So if you want the most granular data, this is where to go. But we get the data, then we get the data to another dataset project called Web Features. So you're like, well, but why? Like, right? Why are we doing like one dataset to make another dataset? Well, what is a web feature is a bit philosophical question. Say, anchor tag might be an easier one because yes, anchor tag definitely needs href. So like href and other attributes should be grouped together as a feature anchor tag. But what if you say like list, right? Should OL tag be a one feature and LI tag be another feature, or should they both combined as one feature? Or like JavaScript built-in. So should mass.co be one feature and mass.round as another feature, or should math object as a whole be one feature? Like somebody needs to make a mental decision about what is a web feature, right? So let me visualize. So BCD or granular data points are the data, and then the BCD collector or the manual pull request updates the data every browser versions. Then the web features work takes that data, but group them, add definitions, mark them to sort of make an editorial choice of a feature set for the web. The idea is that then the tools consume these features. So when you go to Can I Use or MDN or some sort of linker that gets developed, everybody have a same data source that's consuming a tag is this group, list element is this group, and there's no discrepancy or confusion between, oh, this site lists, you know, this and this as a separate features or something. Like we goes from the same data source. That's the idea of this project. So I've already talked about these widgets that's showing up on the MDN or Can I Use, but let me show you a few other ones. So let's use baseline to see what's new in the web platform. Our team at Chrome last year made a dashboard called Web Platform Status, which quickly became my favorite, not just because my team made it, but like quickly became my favorite to keep up to date on new features for the web platform. So you just go in and see the list of features the web features repo created and see if it's baseline or not, which support it is. And there's a few tags. So if you select the baseline 2025 tab, you can see already in 2025, we had 2 features graduated to baseline newly available from the limited availability. By the way, if you look at this number, this basically indicates how much of that granular BCD data was mapped to a web features repo. So you can see quite a good number. So 89.5%. Like some of the web features are like very niche and not being used. So, and also BCD getting updated all the time. So like, you know, idea is that like this number should be close to 100% all the time. When we launched this dashboard, it was not this close. So it means that like data set wasn't there to be useful, but at the end of last year, it became like 80% up. And then we feel confident that like now you can dig in and get useful information out of this dashboard. By the way, we also added more filters. So you can do more granular search. So let's say, you know, you somehow wondering like whether this single feature is a update for Safari 16 or one of the the more updates after the Safari 16.x, right? Then you can select which browser updates between this time frame to nail down to confirm that like whether that feature was added during that time or not. So please do explore that dashboard. It's quite handy. We also made a widget, which we also consume on web.dev ourselves. So if you have a blog or you maintain internal documentation, you can get these widgets, either npm install or precompiled version from CDN, and you add just one line with this feature ID. In this case, I have font size adjust. It's basically the name of the feature from the web features repo project, right? And the good thing is that once you add this one line, the widget will automatically update as the underlying data set gets updated. So let's say you are writing about something, then you don't need to go back and update a compat table. Once the feature became widely available, then the widget will automatically get updated. Such a nice feature. And also, if you, as I mentioned, this is a community group project. So if you are using baseline anywhere on your documentation blog, now is a great time to submit a pull request to add your sites to the list of baseline in the wild project site. As you can imagine, this project is now sort of starting to full force on like, please use it, please know about this. So we want to know, A, we want to know if you're using it, but also B, we want to promote you when the project is baseline. And the final thing, now that the project has name, definitions, and dashboard, and widgets, and like things to solve the developer point that I started with, next thing on our roadmap is tooling. So what if you could include the baseline you are supporting, say like, oh, I support baseline 2024, and the linter will tell you whether you're using like too cutting edge of a feature, or you're using like you need update. Or what if you can run an action after you submit a pull request to check on your code base to see your baseline support version, right? So the first tool to integrate baseline was RAM Archive Insights page. So it shows how many users are included in based on their data for each baseline year. Newly available, it's between newly available and widely available, there's like 30 months. So if you want to go more granular about like this year, my website wants to support baseline 23, then you can go and say, the bigger pool of users that RAM Archive have or sees, you can see how much of the users are on that support line. And when we announced it, they also announced that they would do this for the RAM Vision, which is the specific to your website user base thing, right? So soon you'll be able to go in RAM Vision and say, my website, how much of users are supporting the features that has different baseline versions, and easier to choose. And for this year, we are expecting more news on tools. But for now, we also want to hear from you. Whether you are trying to look up baseline versions or include a widget on your blog post, or you are trying to use baseline on a tool or product, we are here to help. I'm very excited about baseline. Spent a few years just in research about like developer pain points, and like feels like finally I can go out and like tell people about like, how about this solution? So I would like to hear back from you of if it's working or not. And before I go, one last thing, because the point of conference talk like this is to help you developers and know if it really is good or not. So I have a 3-question survey. It's quick, please answer. And me, as well as product managers on the team, would love to hear feedback. I'm Mariko from Chrome Developer Relation Team, and thank you very much for your time.